Welcome to today's breakdown. Look, if you're a business owner, a tenant, or a real estate developer, you already know the pervasive, almost inevitable headache of commercial construction. You set a budget, you feel great about it, and then, slowly but surely, that number just starts to inflate. Today, we're going to break down exactly why that happens, and more importantly, how you can actually stop it. Let's just dive right in. It's the exact question that frustrates stakeholders everywhere, right? Why does the price tag always seem to grow between that initial handshake and the final ribbon-cutting ceremony? Is it bad math, greedy contractors, unlucky timing? Well, the truth is, it's a mix of complex internal and external factors, and understanding them is your absolute first step to protecting your bottom line. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll be breaking down project costs. Second, we'll look at the labor and material crisis. Third, scope creep and design changes. And finally, actionable strategies to control your budget. Let's get to it. Section 1. Breaking down project costs, the foundation of your budget. Let's peel back that first layer and establish exactly where your money goes right from the start. What's really interesting here is how clearly your financial exposure is divided. In commercial projects, your budget is essentially split into soft costs and hard costs. Soft costs are the expenses not directly tied to physical construction, so think architectural services, consulting fees, engineering, and city permits. These can fluctuate, sure, based on local regulations or geography, but they're generally pretty manageable. Hard costs, on the other hand, are your direct physical construction expenses. We're talking raw materials, labor, and heavy equipment. These are incredibly volatile, totally at the mercy of market trends, and this is usually where your budget takes the absolute heaviest hits. Section 2. The labor and material crisis, external market threats. Now we're moving into the macro-level issues out in the real world that we absolutely have to plan for. When we talk about volatile hard costs, we really have to zoom out and look globally. The cost of your essential building blocks, lumber, steel, copper, even oil availability, they are constantly shifting. And why is that? It's because macro-level trade policies, international tariffs, and massive supply chain constraints create this wild pricing volatility. A supply chain hiccup halfway across the world, like say a single massive cargo ship getting stuck in a canal, can directly inflate the cost of the steel beams you need for your local tenant improvement project. Crazy, right? But materials, well, they're really only half the battle. Let's transition over to the very human element on the construction site. Right now, the entire construction industry nationwide is weathering a severe shortage of skilled tradespeople. It's a massive, unavoidable trend affecting the sector everywhere, and it directly impacts how quickly and how affordably your project can actually get finished. To really understand the sheer severity of this crisis, let's look at a vibrant market like Los Angeles. According to the Associated General Contractors of America, LA is facing a skilled labor shortfall of somewhere between 15 to 20%. That is a massive gap. And we aren't just talking about general labor here. This is hitting highly specialized, absolutely essential trades like electrical, plumbing, and carpentry especially hard. The domino effect of a shortage like this is incredibly painful. First up, you've got rising labor costs, simply because employers are locked in wage bidding wars for a shrinking pool of talent. Second, fewer workers on the ground means stretched timelines and inevitable project delays. And third, which is honestly perhaps the most frightening, is the risk to quality. Fewer qualified workers raises the risk of subpar work, which then requires really costly fixes later on. Top-tier firms obviously refuse to compromise on excellent quality, but across the broader industry, this dynamic leads straight to massive overall cost overruns. Section 3. Scope creep and design changes. Internal project threats. Let's shift our focus to the things happening inside your project's walls, the things you actually have the power to control. Let's look at a real-world scenario that perfectly illustrates the reality of scope creep. Imagine a high-end retail store remodel in Los Angeles. Step 1, the initial plan is just a basic interior remodel. They're keeping the existing lighting, the flooring, the HVAC system. The budget is locked in. But then, step 2, bids come in, and the client decides, you know what, we want a high-tech audio-visual system, custom casework, and brand new premium-grade flooring. So step 3, the inevitable happens. The budget and the timeline are both massively impacted. Now, these are fantastic additions, don't get me wrong, but they expand the project way, way beyond those original financial boundaries. So how do we stop a situation like that from spiraling totally out of control? Well, it all comes down to incredibly effective project management. You have to implement a formal change order process.
Clear, constant communication among the tenant, the building owner, and the contractors is just mandatory. Any single modification to the scope needs to be properly documented, aggressively evaluated for how it impacts both money and time, and it has to be formally approved before a single hammer is swung on site.
It's also super important to distinguish between the two main types of internal budget killers. You've got unforeseen conditions and you've got late-stage design changes. Unforeseen conditions, like opening up a wall and finding a 100-year-old plumbing nightmare or a sudden economic shift, those are unpredictable. You mitigate those through really thorough initial assessments and flexible planning. Late-stage design changes, however, modifying plans after they are finalized, that wreaks absolute havoc on a budget, and it is entirely preventable. Both require proactive early assessment, but those late-stage design changes require strict, ironclad internal discipline. Section 4, strategies to control your budget, taking back control. Okay, we've talked about all the problems. Now let's talk about the solutions and how you can actually insulate your projects from these exact threats. Taking back control requires a highly proactive approach. First, you need to collaborate with industry experts who truly understand local and global market trends so you can actually anticipate cost fluctuations. Second, refine your procurement. Get into a dialogue with your suppliers incredibly early so you can lock in favorable pricing. Third, engage your critical trade partners during the initial design phase. Doing this stabilizes prices early and massively streamlines correlation. And fourth, maintain robust, completely transparent communication across your entire team so you can make quick, cost-saving decisions on the fly. To completely eliminate nasty surprises, you can employ what's known as Target Value Delivery, or TVD. TVD is an approach that continuously monitors your costs throughout the design and construction phases. This ensures your scope perfectly aligns with your predetermined budget. Top experts use a design-build approach alongside highly effective multi-step processes. What this really means is they are setting the budget super early and checking it multiple times throughout the entire course of the project. This completely eliminates those terrifying end-of-project financial surprises. Let's see how this actually translates into physical logistics, because this is a brilliant strategy. Instead of relying on just-in-time delivery in a really chaotic market, leading firms utilize dedicated warehouse storage. Step 1, they proactively secure and store key materials to dodge short-term price hikes. Step 2, that warehouse isn't just a storage unit, it acts as a central hub for precision staging. And step 3, from there, they dispatch highly coordinated deliveries exactly when a project phase needs them. This keeps the site uncluttered and effectively dodges those awful construction delays. And look, budget control doesn't mean you have to build a boring box. It means using innovative design solutions. By thinking outside the box during the initial design phase, you can identify alternative materials and integrate energy-efficient systems. This not only lowers your immediate construction costs without sacrificing a single ounce of quality or aesthetic appeal, but it actually reduces your long-term operating costs once the doors are finally open. It's just a massive win-win for the entire life cycle of the building. Fluctuating material costs, massive labor shortages, scope creep, these are just absolute realities in commercial construction today. But by applying strategic planning and proactive procurement like the experts at Letter 4, you can definitely ensure financial stability. But this leaves you with one critical question to answer before you break ground on your next big vision. Is your next project truly prepared for the unexpected, or are you just hoping for the best? Thanks so much for joining me for today's breakdown, and keep learning.